Now that we've identified the data that we want to scrape from the National Weather Service website, let's write our code. So we can first of all import the requests module, and we can then import BeautifulSoup by putting from bs4 import BeautifulSoup. We can then set a variable called page to equal a call on the get method from the requests module, in which we can pass in the Los Angeles forecasting webpage. So if I copy and paste this from my browser, we are then requesting to download the web page containing the forecast. Next, we can create a BeautifulSoup class, which will enable us to pass the page. So if I set a variable called soup, we can set this equal to a call on the BeautifulSoup class, in which we'll pass in the markup specifically. So we know we have a property called content on the response object. So I can put page.content as the first argument. And the second argument will state that it's HTML that we're wanting to pass. So we can put html.parser. Now, seeing as the extended forecast data that we're trying to scrape is contained within a div container with the ID 7-day forecast, which can be seen here when we inspect the HTML, we can store this div tag's information by firstly creating a variable called 7_day_forecast. And we'll set this equal to a call on our BeautifulSoup object, so we can put soup. We can then use the find method, so we can put .find, and in parentheses, we want to find the div method that is associated with the ID equal to 7-day forecast. Now, inside the div with the ID 7-day forecast, the data for each individual forecast is contained within a div tag, which is associated with the class tombstone-container. So if I go into the HTML, you can see that when I dive into class panel body, then 7-day forecast container, and keep drilling until we hit the list, when I open up the list elements, you can see that we have div tags which are labeled with the class tombstone-container. So this will relate to our forecast items. So back in Jupyter Notebook, we can set a variable called forecast_items and set this equal to a call on the BeautifulSoup object which we created above called 7_day_forecast. We can then place a dot in order to utilize the find_all method, and in parentheses we want to search for the information that's associated where class equals tombstone-container. And note here we have to put an underscore in order to search for specific class names. When I now take a look to see what's stored in forecast_items, you can see we bring back a result set, and the top part of the result set up to the first comma, so the first element, is related to today's forecasts. The second element in this result set is in reference to the period name tonight, and so on. So if I wanted to extract the first forecast item, I can index this result set by passing in index 0, and if I assign this to a variable called today, and then print today.printify with parentheses, we then print out the respective HTML code that pertains to today's forecast. Now, as you can see, inside this forecast item today, we have all the information we need. And there are 4 pieces of information that we'll want to extract. We have the period name of the forecast item, in this case it's today. We have the description of the conditions, and you can see this is stored in the title property of image stating today, patchy fog before 11 AM, otherwise cloudy through mid-morning. So this is a good description. We have a short description of the conditions, in this case it states patchy fog then sunny, and we can see the temperature high, in this case it's 80 degrees Fahrenheit. So we'll extract each of these one by one, all in a very similar way. So first of all, we can set a variable called period to equal today.find. We want to find the text that's stored within the class period name. So in brackets, we can put class underscore equals and then period dash name. And then we can utilize the get underscore text method. If I now print what's stored in the variable period, we get today. I can now do the same for the short description. So if we set a variable called short underscore desc and then set this equal to today.find and search where class equals short-desk. We can then access the get_text method to extract the text. And now when I print the value that's stored in the variable short_desk, we get patchy fog then sunny. I can now copy and paste the above code. We can change the variable to be temp. We can set this equal to where class is temp, and then we can print temp. When I do this, we get high 80 Fahrenheit. And finally, we can extract the longer description, which we know is stored in the title property of image. So if we put img equals today.find, we can pass in img. We can then set a variable called desk, and we'll set this equal to a call on the title property, which is very much like accessing a value from a dictionary. So we can set desk equal to img. We can then open square brackets and pass in the property labeled title. When I then print what's stored in the variable desc, you can see that we print to the screen, today, patchy fog before 11 AM. So we've now stored the information we need into separate variables. So this is how we can extract the information we need for an individual forecast date. But how do we extract all the information from the page at once for all 7 days? Well, we'll tackle this in the next video, so I'll see you there.